But this guy, this loser, he just got obsessed, and it got to the point that it became creepy if you really think about it. You've made me love again after a long, long while in love again, and I'm glad that it's you, huh? And I'm glad that is you, that it is you. I don't know if that's correct. Maybe it's I'm glad that it's you, and I'm glad that is you. Okay, so let's do this. Powerful Comicsman podcast. Um, so I just I was just recording earlier, and I don't know, just to make a segue before before going into the actual comics review, and I don't know, I just talked about this song. I was talking about for some reason I was talking about Jose Marichan's "Beautiful Girl," and I was just rambling. And after listening to it, I thought I don't wanna I don't wanna put that in this podcast. At least maybe not yet, but I'd rather talk about something else. So I just remembered that how I actually I don't know how I forgot how how happy I was last night because I just watched The Greatest Showman. That was a very that was a very pleasant surprise. And let's put the trailer on. And okay, so this is Hugh Jackman's latest movie. And what's amazing is I didn't know about this movie at all until last night before we went, and I don't know how I missed it because probably I was just really I was I was just really looking forward to the comic book movies, and haven't been paying attention in the other movies recently in the past few years. So I was very surprised to see this movie and see how awesome it is. It's probably the best movie, one of the best movies of all time that I've seen. Just in the enjoyment that I felt while watching it, and I know there are lots of criticisms about this movie, which I'm gonna talk about maybe later on. But let's just tackle the good points and just take it as it is, as the movie that it is right now. Okay, so first surprise was it was a musical. Okay, and another thing is it was about P.T. Barnum, and P.T. Barnum is one of the I've heard about him. I've read a few things about him. I don't know. I'm not an expert on him or whatsoever, but he is one of the curious um, personalities. One of the personalities that I've been curious about. Because as this movie showed, He is the founder of the circus. He's not the first one to put up a circus, but he is one of the pioneers, or maybe probably the pioneer of, at least in America, of those side freak shows. So even here locally, we have those. They're just not as popular, but and of course, a lot of the freak shows that we have here in the Philippines. Here it's called the Peria. It's a little carnival thingy, but sometimes there are attractions of for lack of a better word, people who are um well, they're called freaks, but they're really just people with disabilities sometimes, or a medical condition that's maybe they have dwarfism, or they're really tall, or some or in the cases that I've seen, they're just faking it. So I've actually went into one of those sideshows in the province when I was young, and it says outside the banners, there was a huge signage, and it says there's a mermaid inside. Always. So me and my buddy, it was only 10 pesos, I think, just to go there and look at it. And when I saw it, it's just a lady with a fish, what do you call that, a fish costume, a mermaid costume, basically. So we were laughing. But then so obviously we were duped. It wasn't really a mermaid. Like, I don't, well, it's just I suppose you just go inside to satisfy your curiosity. We knew it wasn't a real mermaid, but we wanted to look anyway. Okay, and the the what's funny is that the following afternoon we saw that woman in the mermaid costume walking around without her costume. I think she bought something in one of the stores, so we saw her and we were laughing, and she was laughing too, actually. Anyway, back to P.T. Barnum. So this guy, and the movie, he was played by Hugh Jackman, who is who is well, let's just put it like this. When I grow up, I want to be Hugh Jackman. That's cheesy, but I just Hugh Jackman is the actor that I use. He's my go-to actor to to explain, kind of explain my sort of frustration in a lot of actors here in the Philippines. Well, movie actors, at least the ones that are popular in the masses. But well, a lot of I'm not knocking off the actors here in the Philippines, because we have fine actors and actresses here. But what I'm saying is that Hugh Jackman is so fantastic. Of course, I probably saw him before, but of course what really uh, carved him in my psyche, well, is his role as Wolverine, right? So Hugh Jackman, in my opinion, changed Wolverine, because you know, Wolverine doesn't in the comics doesn't look like Hugh Jackman, but when Hugh Jackman played Wolverine, Okay, you're Wolverine. Okay, so we're not gonna argue. You're badass. You're Wolverine. Let's disregard how it should be in the comics. We'll give it to you. We're gonna give it to you, Hugh Jackman. Okay, so but then of course Wolverine is this badass character, and he's Wolverine. That explains it. And then you find out that he was actually a comedian back in Australia, and he's done a lot of he's also worked in theater, and well, he's to make this explanation short, he's just a real thespian, probably the finest that I know of. Well, I've heard a lot of people in interviews. Um, Most of them said that it was, especially in Joe Rogan show, um, it's almost unanimous that the finest actor in Hollywood is Edward Norton. Maybe, well, Edward Norton has always been impressive, but Hugh Jackman, he's gonna. I think for me, it's Hugh Jackman is better. Maybe because I'm a pop guy. So, but nevertheless, for me, Hugh Jackman is the finest actor of this generation, and that's because he can do basically anything, and he can sing, he can dance, he can be funny, and he can be badass. You tell him what you need, he's gonna pull it off. And it was just flawless for me. It's a flawless performance. He did a flawless performance in this movie, The Greatest Showman. And actually, I would say that he carried the entire cast. Let's play this thing again. Let's keep displaying. He carried probably the entire cast, most of them. Well, there are other. Well, it is very well casted. Zach Efron was great here too. But Hugh Jackman is just another level, and Michelle Williams. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not good with with the names of actors. You gotta be. Sometimes I'd confuse the actors' faces with the names. So, but another standout in this movie is the girl. The I think she's mulatto. Um, Her name, I looked it up. It's just one name. It's Zendaya. Zendaya. This is Zendaya chick. Yeah, this one, this girl. So she's just stunning in this movie, in my opinion. And she also performed awesome, especially in the stunts that she made for this movie. Because in this movie she's playing an acrobat, a trapeze acrobat. She does this stunts in the air with ropes, and she like that, and she's just fantastic, and she pulled her role really well too. And what else? The other cast members were were funny. This is not a. I think if if anything, because obviously this is a very fun movie. This is a probably I'd say the ultimate feel good movie that I've ever seen, and I've seen lots of feel good movies over the years. And what I can say is that they follow a certain formula. All of them kind of look the same. So there's gonna be a low point, and then the challenges, but and those parts are gonna be typically those parts are you can tell them apart. You can you can tell the stages of the movie where the different things, different events happen in this movie. Because I mean the mood of those segments are very separated. You can tell easily. In this movie, it still has those parts, the conflict, the the part where he's dreaming, the part where it shows his whys and why he wants to dream and why he wants to achieve great things, and the part where he's actually doing what doing he's working hard on achieving his goals, and then the problems that came after and how he faced the problems and the ending and feel good. In most movies, those segments you can easily tell that okay, so this part of the conflict, this is the stressful part. So you're gonna feel stressed and be sad, and you're gonna cry. And on this part, this is where um, this is the feel good part. This is where the the hero succeeds and everything's great again. And those emotions from being sad, and then this is on this part, on the succeeding part, they're happy. Those are very separated. On this film, even on the low parts that the characters are struggling, and you could see that they are struggling, and you can tell, you can feel it, that you can feel their struggle. But this movie, what separates this is that the storytelling managed to make you still feel good about it. I don't know. I'm gonna need to analyze it further, but that's what it did. So the perfect example would be the part where Zendaya's character and Zac Efron's character. So spoiler alert, okay? Spoiler alert. Just a minor spoiler. It's obvious. It's also it's obvious anyway in the trailer. So um, I forget their names in the movie. So let's just call them with their actual names. So Zac Efron, when he joined the team of P.T. Barnum of Hugh Jackman, so he became like an apprentice of Hugh Jackman in this film. And the first time he saw Zendaya, it was that scene where sh- where where she's on the trapeze in slow mo, and he she got face to face with Zac Efron, and you can clearly see Zac Efron's face, like he was enchanted, and so he was immediately attracted to Zendaya, and then but then Zendaya is black, right? Or maybe half black. I don't know. I don't know exactly, but this This is, of course, this movie's timeline is set in the 1850s or mid 1800s, and those were different times. Okay, so racism and you know uh, political correctness and lots of the things that a lot of that's um it's actually an understatement because, well, but a lot of things that you can do back then will not be acceptable right now, and that's a huge understatement. People are, well, racism is not checked at all. Actually, it is the norm, and political correctness is non-existent. So that is the world where this story happened. And P.T. Barnum, I mean Zac Efron's parents. Well, Zac Efron was attracted to Zendaya, and eventually they got together. And then there was a scene where I think they're going on a date to watch a play or something, and Zac Efron's parents caught them in the stairs while they're in the entrance, I think, and humiliated Zendaya. And of course, well, Zac Efron did the right thing and stood up for her. And then the following scene, so that sets it up. It's it's how do you say this? Um, the setting, the scene is already set up. So Zendaya is hurt, and Zac Efron. It was a stressful scene, and it's supposed to be because it's gotta be stressful, right? So you gotta a full. It's a very complex situation, especially if you consider the time and the ways that people behaved during those days, and you're gonna add the complexities of being in love and fighting for the person you love, and trying to explain and trying to affirm your love to the other person, and prove yourself. So those are very complex things. And while on the other hand, the girl would be, well, she was shamed, and she's hurting, and she's unsure whether Zac Efron is true or not, or if he's just using her for something else, or is he sincere. So she's doubtful, and she feels belittled, and she feels um shitty. Okay, so now, but then she's very hesitant, but then she is in love, and she wanted to give him a chance, and she's weighing her options, and what do you call this, and and analyzing things, whether analyzing the sincerity of Zac Efron, and so it's you could just have them talking, or maybe if it's a musical, maybe go like in Les Miserables, and sing a really heavy song, and you know I don't know, like on my own, something like that, to feel the gravity of the emotions. But this movie, they what they did, well, if you listen to the song, it's still heavy. I forget the song, but um, I should have looked it up before I started this. Okay, but it it's heavy, but it's upbeat, and the visuals that they used is uh very dynamic, and so they started doing these stunts on the rope, and which shot them high up in the air, and they were dancing in the air, and they were doing these crazy stunts, and you know it's just amazing visual, and it's just you can still feel the intensity of the moment, but at the same time, um you're not too stressed, and but you still feel the you know that that part is I don't know if I'm talking about me, okay? Maybe some people are still stressed with that because it was breathtaking. The scene is one of the best in the movie, and so they're dancing, they're doing the stunts, and they're singing, and they're really good at it, and the expressions were right, and I don't know, just pull it off after it. You were just satisfied that the message that this is intense, this is an intense scene, but they told you, but it was told in a very upbeat manner where you could still smile. Not upbeat in a manner that still puts a smile on your face. And I don't know how it was pulled off. Most of the scenes. Again, this another spoiler. There's a scene where um probably the hardest scene was when Hugh Jackman, uh the lowest point for him was when his building was burned down, and his wife kind of left him, or well, she 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 went back to her parents' house. That's what happened. So, but then it wasn't really it was very short. I think that was the most obvious. Well, actually the building burned down after. Oh no, now I'm confused. So Hugh Jackman was on the road, and then he went back to New York, and and his building was burning, and then hmm, I forget. anyway, anyway, but those were the direct. Those are the I think those were the only direct tones that was placed in the movie. Everything else was cleverly executed. So there's this one of I think my favorite scene was was when Hugh Jackman was trying to convince Zac Efron to join him uh, in his uh, in his company, and they were dancing. went into this amazing, amazing choreography with the bartender. So yeah, they were in the bar, they were drinking there, and it was just fantastic. You just gotta watch it to appreciate that scene. And well, it could have been told in a manner that's like in, I don't know, Wolf of Wall Street, when Leonardo DiCaprio was recruiting his guys, and that's clever too. But this one is a different approach. That's what I'm saying, and it just works. It just works. And I was very pleasantly surprised by this movie. And for some for a movie that was just, I just had nothing to do yesterday, and my wife just asked me, "Hey, you want to watch the movie?" Okay. And then what movie? So that's what we watched, and we almost missed it because this movie, um, like this trailer, this is published on November 13. I think this was released in the US in December 2017. I don't know, maybe the last week, but during that time, there's a film festival here in the Philippines that uh, one of the one of the things about this festival is for an entire week or two, it's gonna be all Filipino movies in the theaters. So this movie got bumped by that festival, and I think it was shown late in January, and it was pulled off. But people, word of mouth, this this is a good movie, and the people started asking the theaters to put it back on, and I'm glad that they did because I was able to watch, and we were in this fancy theater with recliners, directors, directors theater. I think I don't know the exact name, how they call it, but it was really a great experience. That's it. What else? What else can I say about this movie? Um, okay, so the criticism about this movie is that it is based on this real historical figure, a man named P.T. Barnum, and he is. Let's look at him. So okay, so this is P.T. Barnum. I have some. Okay, so P.T. Barnum is was the ringmaster and founder of Barnum Circus. And I think this is I don't know if it was sold to another person, if the Barnum still own it, but I think they maintain the name. And um, from what I know, Barnum Circus, Barnum and Bailey's, I think now is still operating, but they started back in mid 1800s, so that's almost 200 years old, a 200-year-old company. And I don't know how long they'd still be able to continue, but I don't know. But back then it was it was very different. This There are many articles like this one, Dark Side of P.T. Barnum, more shocking than any of his freaks. Truths the greatest showman conveniently ignores. Because as you can say, as you could have guessed, actually a lot of the scenes in the movie would be uh, would be awful if it happened today, and you could almost, well, it will be outrageous. It will be scandalous to even say or think about about the ideas that was shown in this movie. Um, but like I said, it was a different time back then, and yeah, it was terrible. It was terrible to treat people as freaks, as because P.T. Barnum has he's not. He, you could you could say all you want that it was a different era, and people just didn't know better back then, and tolerance was different in those days. But at the end of the day, he he had made decisions that are just cruel, and one of those decisions is is parading these freaks, um these people. They're people because at the end of the day they're people with feelings, and although at the same time these people wouldn't have had any other, um he's as shown in the movie, these people wouldn't have any other opportunities like this. um there were people, some of his his spectacles, his guys, his, how do you call that, his attractions. Especially there's this particular woman who was a slave, because I think this happened in 1851, something like that, and there's still slavery, and in the U.S. Of course, the cruelty in, well, with the animals, which is very surprising, considering it happened in the 1800s, because up until now, circuses still abuse animals to train them. So what more back in those days, right? And which, by the way, gotta stop. It's just pointless. And anyway, on the side note, maybe Bill Murray would have been a better pick to play P.T. Barnum, right? This looks like Bill Murray. Okay. Oh, the Tom Thumb fella, it was on point. Uh, he looked like this guy. I think some of the people, the so-called freaks in his shows, I think some were treated better than the others, but there were definitely people who got, like the slave girl. Even until death, she wasn't safe. I think I saw an episode of the Pickers, if you're familiar with it. In the Pickers in History Channel. I'm not sure if it was P.T. Barnum's, but there's this woman that was mummified. So I don't know if it's the slave girl, or this is an entire, if this is um another person. But there's this woman that was mummified, and she's in a coffin that was passed on and on by different sideshow circuses, and it ended up, at some point, I think it was in P.T. Barnum's collection, and it was just awful. The backstory of that woman, as told in the show The Pickers. I think it's American Pickers in the U.S. I don't know. Um, it was just a heartbreaking story because that person couldn't have, even death couldn't stop people from exploiting her. And I think there's another woman that was used in sideshows. She's really hairy. I don't know if the point is whether it's a PT Barnum who did those or not, or other ringmasters or showmen whatsoever. The point is, this guy made very cruel, very cruel things to other people. Well, given that it was opportunity, but at the end of the day, it's just cruelty, and it was still cruelty, and you know, uh, we call it for what it is. Okay, okay, regardless of the of the circumstances. Um, Probably uh these showmen were not the only ones to blame. It was society. It was the government back then. It was I don't know what else to blame, but I don't think in any time people with disabilities and conditions, rare conditions, should have been exploited, or if they consented, because like the Tom Thumb guy, uh, he was happy. At least that's what it's shown in the movies. But I think he was fine with it, and he even had a family, as shown in this article over here. So she probably met this other little lady in that show. I don't have time to read, okay? So so probably went well for this guy, but for others, it's probably not. It's just it was shown constantly in the movie anyway that even though the 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 employees, that the freaks, um eventually found home in the company, um they still could not. They knew that they were being exploited, and that they were making, people were making fun of them, and they people think low lowly of them, and they don't feel good. But what makes it a little bit worth it is that, at least in the movie version, is that they have company, and and they're making something with their lives, which otherwise, like I said, it's an opportunity that's otherwise not available if they stayed at home. There was a scene in the movie when Hugh Jackman was asking the Tom Thumb, the little guy, to join his circus, and the guy said, "People are gonna laugh at me." And Hugh Jackman responded by saying, "Well, they're laughing anyway. Might as well get paid." And he thought about it, and Agreed. It makes sense. Doesn't make it right, but it makes sense. So, like I said, it's a different time, and I could imagine the social justice warriors being really torn about this movie because it is, as a movie, it is excellent. It is excellent. The only the only criticism I have for it actually is the one that I mentioned earlier, and it's actually a non-criticism. It's actually, you know, it's just something that you could take either way. If it's like I said, the the segments, the parts, or everything is a feel good scene. Even the low parts are feel good scenes. At least most of them. So if you can take that as a compliment or a negative, it's up to you. So that's the only criticism I have for it. Probably maybe if I watch it again, maybe I'd spot a few things, but definitely there were no glaring scenes, especially the way. Um, what I'm saying is everything is coherent. Of course, this is a movie. There are things that would be audacious and exaggerated. Especially this is a musical, but everything is coherent. They follow the same DNA. You could, I don't know if that's an accurate description. So everything follows the same rules. So there were no scenes that didn't go as that DNA is supposed to. So yeah, if you still haven't seen that movie, The Greatest Showman, watch it. It's gonna be worthwhile, and you can play this again. And Hugh Jackman and Zach Efron and Zendaya, they were awesome in this movie. And as for the songs, I would have, maybe that's one criticism that I have. There was a character, the singer. Her name's Jenny Lind. She's also a real life figure that was employed by P.T. Barnum, and she's supposed to be an opera singer, and she didn't sing. She sang in the movie, but it's not an opera piece. It was a pop song, and well, she could have gone pop a little bit, but at least use an opera voice or something similar. That's that's the only that's a slight uh misdirection from the like what I was saying, the encoded DNA of this movie. That's the only time where it's steered away from the rest of the flow of the movie, and it was forgivable. It was forgivable. It was still an awesome scene. Um, it could have, it could have, it probably would have been more coherent if she sang in opera style. That's what I'm saying. But it was cool and great. So watch this movie. It's gonna be fun, and it's a feel good movie, and I'm gonna end this rambling. I'm just repeating myself already. Okay? So I'm gonna go to my to my comics review right now. It's gonna be Batman White Knight issue 2. Watch out for it.